United States is in the business of saving the damn world by any means necessary.
What in the holy hell?
Can you tell us a bit about the characters you play in Creature Commandos and how you made your characters your own?
I play both the Weasel and G.I. Robot. The Weasel, I am reprising that role from the live action The Suicide Squad. You know, I had thought of the Weasel as comic relief when I did that movie. And then in this show, we learn a lot more about him. And I learned that he has a much sort of richer emotional arc and history, and a lot more to draw upon. He just can't speak. So he's doing it through grunts and growls and squeals and squawks and whatever kind of weasel noises. It's nice to have some distance on a character and then be able to dig a little deeper and explore what's down there inside. I also play G.I. Robot, who hates Nazis. He's a robot built in the 1940s for the express purpose of killing Nazis. And personally, I listen to some old newsreels and things like that to try to find his voice. And then you try to tap into this thing where he's almost human. He's got this spark of something that compels him to want to belong. And when people treat him as though he belongs, it feels good, and it's surprising in a robot kind of way. And try to find my way into that. So they're both really cool characters, and I really enjoyed playing both.
And I play Nina Mazursky, and I found it fitting that she's sort of an unknown character in DCU, and I am coming to the universe as a new, as new to the whole world myself. And yeah, Nina is an aquatic being. She's half fish, half human, and has struggled her whole life to fit in. And despite having a traumatic origin story, she's a very, arguably the kindest, most reasonable of the bunch. I relate to her because she exists as neither, fully fish, neither fully human. I am biracial. I understand this idea of not always knowing where you belong, or who accepts you or claims you. But she is, I think her superpower is her big heart, and she forges these unexpected relationships with Bride and G.I. Robot, and is kind of, the heart of the misfits.
And how did you both prepare for your roles after being casted in the series?
Well, I'd mentioned I'd already played Weasel, so that was I was just kind of dipping my toe back into what where he was, and I watched some YouTube videos of weasels, and that was about the length of it for me. And I also had mentioned that about G.I. Robot. I listened to some old newsreels. I didn't want him to sound too sort of stereotypical robot, like the tinny robot voice, and I wanted more of a like news on the march kind of feel with what he sounded like. But that's just in terms of sound. But then everything else is like any other acting job. You're just kind of trying to play the truth of who this guy is.
Yeah, and I signed up to the YMCA, and I took a lot of swimming lessons. No, we've been talking about how incredible the scripts were when we got them. There's 7 tight stories with all very distinct and just all popped. So I just knew that we were in great hands, responsible hands, and that James was going to guide us and make sure that we were on the right track. And then everything that I needed to know was in the scripts. And yeah, and then it was really fun to get into the booth and to play with Indira, who was in London. I was in New York, and then to meet Sean after the fact and to see that beautiful relationship actually really does, you know, come through the screen. And but yeah, it all felt very natural.
And Sean, what was it like working so closely with your brother James Gunn on all these DC projects?
You know, James and I have been working together in some capacity or another since we've been kids. He's really the easiest person for me to work with, because anytime an actor starts to work with a creator, there's a little bit of a learning curve where you figure out you know, how to communicate with one another, how to collaborate with one another, really. And James and I already have done all that legwork. So when we work together on something, I have a very strong sense of what he's looking for and where it's going. And he knows what I'm good at, and he also knows how to talk to me and how to like tell me when he wants it to go another direction. And so it's really you know, my brother's really good at his job. I think he would say the same about me. So we're both pretty focused on doing the work, and have a little bit of a good time in between, but don't focus on that part too much.
And Zoe, this will be Nina's first on-screen appearance. How does it feel being the first person to portray this character on screen? And what is your favorite part about playing her?
Oh, it feels very cool. I feel maybe the coolest I've ever felt that I get to this. I've never had a Funko before. And here she is. She's so rad. Well, there are a lot of things about her that are cool. I mean, her lungs are on the outside of her body. She wears a water suit and a water tank helmet. When she sleeps, she takes everything off and she's in the bathtub. The way she eats food is she pops it into the chute in her collar, and then it floats up and is in the water, and then she pulls it in her mouth. Yeah, I'm like, wow, the imagination is so rich. James, you know, and to get to play her is really cool.
And what was it like for you both working with the rest of the cast on Creature Commandos?
You know, for the most part, we, with the exception of maybe 4 or 5 scenes over the course of the series, which, you know, there were a few scenes where people actually worked together in the booth together. Zoe and Indira worked together, and Frank and David worked together a couple of times, and a couple others. But for the most part, that's the thing about animation, is that you're really flying solo in the booth. You know, there's some other actors that I knew that I'd met before socially, but I didn't work with anybody, and so like I didn't really get to kind of meet the cast and get together as a cast until we were at New York Comic Con a couple of weeks ago, which is where I met Zoe. And so it's kind of a cool thing. It was so great to hear their voices and know how great those performances are, and then see them all and be like, oh, that's you, you're great. It's like, and this is a really cool thing. But from my perspective, we all sort of did it separately and then came together.
It's true though, you kind of fangirl like you, yeah, it's for me, who's new to animation and new to this crew too, to then like fall in love with these characters and the voices, and then to meet the actors after the fact when we're about to do press. I was like, I'm nervous. I'm more nervous than I normally am, because I'm like a fan of these people now. But we've worked together, and we're going to talk about
colleagues. So we talked about Suicide Squad earlier, and how Sean, you were Weasel in that as well. There's a lot of comparisons and parallels between the Suicide Squad and Creature Commandos. So I wanted to ask who you both think would win in a fight and why.
I think Creature Commandos would win. Honestly, you got Phosphorus setting fire to people, and
Bride.
the Bride. I think Harley Quinn and the Bride could probably just like fight each other off to the death. But then also if you got Frankenstein in there and like it would be that's a good match.
Yeah,
It
good.
might be, but answering that, I would send that one up to my brother and ask him what he thinks. He would know. I guarantee you he would know for sure.